I was making the bed and found a long blonde hair on the sheet. My hair is short and dark. I didn't say anything, but I set up a hidden camera in our bedroom. What happened the next day ruined my marriage and shamed my husband. The morning started like any other. The kettle whistled, the coffee dripped, and sunlight crept lazily through the blinds of our bedroom. I had just finished folding the laundry when I turned to make the bed. It was muscle memory at this point, tugging the fitted sheet tight at the corners, smoothing the quilt, fluffing the pillows. My life with Daniel had been 20 years of routines, and though they sometimes felt dull, they also gave me a strange comfort. But that morning, comfort slipped away in the smallest, most delicate form. As I pulled the sheet straight, something caught my eye. A strand of hair, long, pale blonde, almost shining in the light. It lay against the dark fabric like a piece of spun gold. I froze. I touched the back of my own head, running my fingers over the short, dark bob I'd worn for years. My hair was thick, nearly black, and never more than shoulder length. Nothing about me resembled the gleaming thread now clinging to our bed. A stranger's hair. At first, my mind scrambled for innocent explanations. Maybe it was from a friend who had visited weeks ago. Maybe it had clung to Daniel's shirt from a coworker, drifting down as he changed. Maybe. But the strand was too long, too perfect, too intimate. It didn't belong in my bed. I held it between my fingers, the silky texture sliding through as if mocking me. I wanted to march into the kitchen, shove it in Daniel's face, demand an answer. But as quickly as the urge came, another instinct took over. Silence. I set the strand on the nightstand and continued smoothing the sheet, my movements deliberate, as though nothing at all had shifted in my world. But inside, something cracked. When Daniel came home that evening, I said nothing. I watched him eat, laugh at a joke on the TV, and kiss my forehead before bed. I stared at his smile, searching for clues, wondering if guilt could really hide so easily behind eyes I had trusted for 2 decades. That night, I barely slept. The strand haunted me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it shimmering in the light, whispering accusations. By morning, I knew one thing. I wouldn't accuse without proof. Words could be twisted, excuses invented, lies smoothed over. But if there was truth to uncover, I needed something undeniable. And so, instead of confronting Daniel, I quietly made another plan. I spent the next day wrapped in silence. At breakfast, Daniel talked about work, his boss's new project, a client dinner scheduled for the weekend, some small drama about office politics. His words drifted past me like background noise. I stirred my coffee, nodded at the right moments, and smiled faintly when he looked up. Inside, I was listening for something else. A crack, a slip, any sign that his life wasn't as ordinary as he pretended. But nothing came. He seemed calm, even cheerful. If guilt gnawed at him, it was buried so deeply I couldn't see it. And I knew if I confronted him without evidence, he'd laugh it off, call me paranoid, maybe even make me feel foolish. So I said nothing. The silence became my shield. Every word I didn't speak gave me more room to observe. I watched how late he stayed at work. I noticed how often he checked his phone. I memorized the way his smile faltered whenever a message buzzed during dinner. It was subtle, but it was there. That night, as I folded laundry in the living room, Daniel announced he'd be working late the next day. "We've got a deadline," he said, slipping his shoes on. "Don't wait up." I nodded, hiding the chill that crept up my spine. The excuses were starting to form a pattern. After he left, I walked slowly through the house, my hands brushing the furniture, the walls, the places that had once felt like home. But now everything felt staged, like a set where someone else was acting out a version of marriage while I sat in the audience, silently watching. By the time I crawled into bed, I had already decided. Silence wasn't enough. I needed proof. I thought about hiring a private investigator, but the idea felt too dramatic, too expensive. What I needed was something simpler, closer, something I could control with my own hands. As I lay staring at the ceiling, the idea came to me like a whisper. A camera. Small, hidden, watching when I couldn't. The thought made my stomach turn. Was I really the kind of wife who spied on her husband? I had always prided myself on being trusting, on giving space, on believing in us. But trust had been shattered the moment I picked up that blonde strand. The silence had bought me time. Now, I was ready to trade it for the truth. The following afternoon, while Daniel was at work, I drove across town to an electronics store. Rows of sleek devices lined the shelves, baby monitors, motion detectors, security cameras promising peace of mind. My palms were clammy as I picked up a small, discreet model no bigger than a matchbox. The sales clerk explained how easy it was. Wi-Fi connection, app-based controls, high-definition recording. He smiled as though I was just another cautious homeowner worried about break-ins. I nodded, forcing a casual expression, while my heartbeat thudded like a drum. But I wasn't protecting my house from strangers. I was protecting my sanity from the man who slept beside me. Back home, I carried the box into our bedroom. The walls seemed to lean closer as I unpacked the device, slipping the instructions out with trembling hands. I knew every corner of this room, the dresser nicked from moving, the photo frames on the nightstand, the quilt I'd sewn myself. Yet, as I chose a hiding place for the camera, the room felt alien, hostile, like a stage where something dark had already been rehearsed. I finally slid the device onto the top shelf of the bookcase, tucked between two old hardcovers Daniel hadn't touched in years. From there, it had a perfect view of the bed. I tested it twice, checking the feed on my phone until I was satisfied that it captured everything. When it was ready, I sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at the blinking light that told me it was live. A knot twisted in my stomach. What if I was wrong? What if I was about to destroy my marriage over paranoia? But then I pictured the blonde strand again, gleaming, intimate, mocking. The knot hardened into resolve. That evening, Daniel came home late, claiming traffic had been terrible. He kissed me on the cheek, set his briefcase down, and went straight to the shower. I smiled, nodded, pretended nothing was wrong. All the while, the hidden eye above us waited silently, recording. When we went to bed, I kept my breathing steady, feigning sleep while he scrolled on his phone in the dark. Every second felt like a betrayal unfolding in slow motion. I didn't know what the camera would capture. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But as I closed my eyes, I understood one truth. I had crossed the line. Whatever came next, there would be no going back. The next morning, I waited until Daniel left for work before I dared to open the app on my phone. My hands shook as I tapped the icon, half hoping the camera had malfunctioned, half dreading what it might reveal. The feed loaded quickly, showing a still shot of our bedroom bathed in soft evening light. My chest tightened as I slid the timeline back to the hours after I'd gone to bed. At first, it was ordinary. Daniel came in, loosened his tie, changed into pajamas. He moved with the same casual ease I'd seen for years. I almost felt foolish, a paranoid wife chasing shadows. But then the door opened again. My heart stuttered. A woman stepped inside, tall and slim, her blonde hair spilling like silk down her back. She closed the door carefully behind her, as though she belonged there, as though she'd done it before. I leaned closer, my breath caught in my throat. Daniel emerged from the bathroom, and when he saw her, his face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. He crossed the room quickly, gathering her into his arms. They kissed, long, hungry, shameless, before collapsing onto the bed I had made that morning. I couldn't breathe. The camera captured everything, their laughter, their whispers, the way she toyed with his shirt buttons, the way he pressed his face into her hair. My stomach churned as if I'd swallowed poison. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was betrayal in its rawest, cruelest form. played out on the mattress where I had once believed I was safe. For a long time, I sat frozen, staring at the screen. My hands were numb, my body stiff. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to look away. Proof was what I wanted, and proof was what I had. When the video finally ended, I pressed pause, the image of them tangled together frozen on the screen. My reflection stared back at me from the black border of the phone. Hollow eyes, clenched jaw, a woman cracked in two. There was no denying it now. The blonde strand had been a warning. The camera was the confession. And Daniel, the man I had loved, trusted, built a life with, was a stranger I no longer recognized. I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like hours, the phone still in my hand, the frozen image of betrayal glowing back at me. Every sound outside the window, the chirp of birds, the faint hum of a neighbor's lawnmower, felt wrong, too normal for the earthquake that had split my life open. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the phone against the wall, to erase the images that had seared themselves into my memory. But rage alone wouldn't serve me. I needed clarity, not chaos. Slowly, I saved the file. Then another. I downloaded the entire night's recording to a hidden folder, naming it with something innocuous. House repairs. I copied it onto a flash drive and slid it into the back of my dresser drawer. The proof was mine, untouchable. Proof. That word steadied me. Daniel couldn't lie his way out of this. No smooth excuses, no gaslighting, no turning the blame back on me. The evidence spoke louder than any words, but with proof came a question heavier than anything I'd ever faced. What now? I pressed my palms against my thighs, forcing myself to breathe. I thought of our 20 years together, the Christmas mornings, the birthdays, the long drives with the radio turned low. I thought of the promises we made, the house we built, the nights I believed I was loved. And then I thought of her. Blonde hair against my pillow, her laugh in my bedroom, her hands on my husband. The images clashed, ripping me apart. A part of me wanted to confront him that very night, to throw the recordings on the table and watch him crumble. But another part whispered, not yet. If I revealed what I knew too soon, he might twist it, destroy the evidence, even turn the story against me. No, I would wait. I would collect more, enough to make any denial impossible. The silence that had been my shield became my strategy. I moved through the day as if nothing had changed, texting Daniel, answering his calls, smiling when he came home. Inside, though, I was cold steel, every glance, every excuse cataloged and measured against the truth I held in my pocket. That night, as he kissed me goodnight, I turned my face so his lips brushed my cheek instead of my mouth. He didn't notice, or maybe he chose not to. And as he drifted off to sleep beside me, I lay awake, staring into the dark, clutching the knowledge that I had crossed another line. I wasn't just a wife anymore. I was a witness. By the third day of carrying the secret, I felt like I was suffocating. The silence that once felt strategic now pressed on my chest, heavy and relentless. I needed someone to hear me, someone who could help me see straight through the haze of betrayal. So I called Claire. She'd been my closest friend since college, the one person who had seen me through heartbreaks, new jobs, Daniel's proposal, even the day we closed on our house. If anyone could handle this, it was her. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. The clatter of cups and low hum of conversation wrapped around us as I slid into the booth, my hands trembling slightly as I wrapped them around a steaming mug. Claire's sharp eyes scanned my face. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I hesitated, my throat tight. Then I whispered, "I think Daniel is cheating." Her lips parted in shock, but she didn't interrupt. She let me spill everything: the blonde strand, the silence, the hidden camera, the footage. When I finished, she leaned back, her jaw set. "Do you have proof?" she asked. I nodded, sliding my phone across the table. She watched the video in silence, her expression shifting from disbelief to disgust. When it ended, she exhaled sharply. "Well," she said finally, "that's not suspicion. That's fact." I felt a lump rise in my throat. What do I do, Claire? Do I confront him? Do I leave? My whole life is tied to his. Our finances, the house, everything. Her hand covered mine, steady and warm. "Sarah, listen to me. You can't just explode at him without a plan. That's what he'll expect. Anger, tears, maybe forgiveness if he plays it right. You need to be smarter, stronger." I swallowed hard. Stronger how? Lawyer up. Document everything. Don't give him a chance to twist this. If you want out, and I think you do, you need to control the story. Her words pierced me. Control. I had felt powerless for days, trapped between rage and despair. But maybe she was right. I wasn't powerless. I had proof, and now I had a choice. Claire scribbled a name on a napkin. Michael Harding, divorce attorney. He's sharp and discreet. Call him. Today I folded the napkin and slipped it into my purse. The weight of it felt heavier than paper. It felt like a lifeline. That night, when Daniel walked through the door, smiling as if nothing was wrong, I smiled back. But inside, I wasn't his wife anymore. I was his opponent. Michael Harding's office was nothing like I expected. No dark wood or intimidating leather chairs, just a tidy room with a desk stacked neatly with case files, a wall of books, and a large window spilling morning light across the floor. He rose when I entered, offering a firm handshake. "Claire mentioned you might call," he said kindly. "Why don't you tell me what's going on?" For the first time since I discovered the blonde strand, I laid everything bare to someone who wasn't a friend but a professional. The hair, the camera, the footage, the way Daniel still kissed me goodnight while another woman left her imprint on my sheets. Michael listened without interrupting, his eyes steady, his hands folded neatly on the desk. When I finished, he tapped his pen once and said, "You've already done the hardest part. You have evidence." And not just suspicion, but undeniable proof. I slid the flash drive across the table. "It's all here." He slipped it into a folder. "Good. That will be critical. Here's what we do next. Start documenting everything. His late nights, unexplained absences, any financial irregularities. Cheating isn't just betrayal. It often leaves a money trail. Hotel charges, gifts, dinners. If we can connect those to her, it strengthens your case." I nodded, scribbling notes on the pad he handed me. "Next," he continued, "don't confront him yet. If you do, he could destroy evidence, close bank accounts, or move assets. Keep your composure. Play along if you have to. It's about timing." The words stung, but I understood. Silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was strategy. "And finally," Michael said, leaning forward, "when the time comes, you'll control the narrative. You'll file first, with everything prepared. That way, he's reacting to you, not the other way around." A strange calm settled over me as he spoke. For days, I had felt like a woman drowning. Now, for the first time, I felt the solid ground of a plan beneath my feet. When our meeting ended, Michael walked me to the door. "Remember," he said, his tone firm but gentle, "he chose lies. You're choosing freedom. Don't confuse the two." I stepped out into the bright sunlight, the city bustling around me. The world hadn't changed, but I had. The blonde strand had pulled a thread, unraveling my marriage. But now, I was weaving something new, something stronger. That evening, Daniel sat across from me at dinner, chatting about work, his fork clinking against his plate. I nodded and smiled, tucking away every detail for the file I would soon hand to Michael. He thought I was blind, but I was watching closer than ever. I didn't plan the exact moment. It simply arrived. A week of silence, of watching Daniel move through the house like nothing was wrong, of hearing his easy laughter on the phone when he thought I wasn't listening, had stretched me to breaking. That evening, he came home later than usual. He tossed his keys on the counter, loosened his tie, and poured himself a glass of wine, as if the day had been nothing more than spreadsheets and deadlines. I watched him from the kitchen doorway, my pulse steady, my resolve hard as stone. "Daniel," I said softly. He glanced up, smiling. "Hey, you're still up?" I slid my phone across the counter toward him. On the screen, paused in crystal clarity, was the image of him in our bedroom, his arms wrapped around the blonde woman. The smile drained from his face. His hand tightened around the stem of the wine glass until I thought it might shatter. What is this?" His voice faltered. "Evidence," I answered, my tone calm, almost cold. He stared at the screen, then back at me. "Sarah, this isn't what it looks like." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Really?" "Because it looks exactly like my husband in our bed with someone who isn't me." His mouth opened and closed, scrambling for excuses. She's a colleague." It was a mistake. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking clearly. "Stop." My voice cut through the kitchen like a blade. "Don't insult me with rehearsed lines. I saw everything. I heard everything. Do you think I'd plant a camera if I didn't already know?" His face flushed red, shame and anger colliding. "You spied on me?" he snapped. "Yes," I said simply. "And it turns out I had every reason to." For a long moment, we just stared at each other. The silence between us was no longer protective. It was final, like the pause before a verdict. Finally, I reached for the folder I had prepared and laid it on the counter beside the phone. Receipts, emails, screenshots, a paper trail of betrayal. His eyes flicked to it, then away. He didn't touch it. He didn't need to. He knew what it contained. "You destroyed us, Daniel," I said quietly. "Not me. Not the camera. You." He sagged against the counter, the bravado draining from his body. For the first time, he looked small, almost fragile. But I felt stronger than I had in years. Daniel had always been obsessed with appearances. The right suit for every meeting, the charming smile at neighborhood barbecues, the flawless mask of a man in control. But masks crack under pressure, and his shattered in days. It started small. A whisper from Claire to a mutual friend, who passed it along with raised eyebrows. Then the video, yes, the very recording from my camera, found its way to Michael Harding for safekeeping. Somehow a fragment of it slipped into the wrong hands, or perhaps the right ones. Either way, within a week, the whispers had grown louder. At the grocery store, two women leaned close, their voices hushed but sharp. "Did you hear about Sarah and Daniel?" She caught him on camera. "Really? With who?" "Some blonde. God knows from where. Can you imagine?" When Daniel walked in one evening, his face was tight, his jaw clenched. "You've been talking," he accused. I met his glare with calm silence. I didn't have to deny it. I didn't even have to confirm. The truth was spreading all on its own, faster than he could contain it. The real blow came from his job. One morning, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, his phone buzzing endlessly. His boss had requested a conversation. A client had expressed concerns about professionalism. In an industry where reputation was currency, his was now bankrupt. "You've ruined me," he spat, looking up at me with bloodshot eyes. "No, Daniel," I corrected softly. "You ruined yourself. I just stopped covering for you." The next weekend, we attended a neighborhood gathering, something we once did with ease. But this time, conversations hushed when we arrived. Smiles were polite, but strained. One neighbor offered me a sympathetic glance while barely acknowledging Daniel. He lasted less than an hour before storming out, leaving me behind. I didn't chase him. For once, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt liberated. At home that night, he raged, pacing the living room. "I made a mistake, Sarah. One mistake. And now you're parading it for everyone to see." "One mistake?" I asked, my voice steady. How many times did she step into my house? How many nights did you lie beside me after being with her? This wasn't one mistake. This was a life you built behind my back. His silence was the truest confession he'd ever given me. And in that silence, I knew his image was beyond repair. To me, to our neighbors, to his colleagues. The man who lived for appearances had finally been seen for what he was. The morning I filed for divorce was startlingly ordinary. The sun rose, coffee brewed, the city outside my window hummed along as though nothing monumental was happening. But inside me, something had shifted. I dressed carefully, not for Daniel, not for anyone else, but for myself. A crisp blouse, slacks, the kind of outfit that said I'm in control. I slipped the folder of evidence into my bag, the weight of it reassuring. Proof, leverage, closure. It was all there. At the courthouse, the clerk guided me through the paperwork with practiced efficiency. My hand didn't tremble as I signed each page. Every stroke of the pen felt like cutting a rope that had kept me bound to a sinking ship. When it was done, I stepped outside and drew in a deep breath of cool air. Freedom didn't roar, it whispered, soft and steady, like a promise finally kept. That evening, Daniel confronted me in the kitchen. His tie was loose, his face pale with exhaustion. "You filed," he said flatly, as though the words themselves betrayed him. "Yes," I answered simply. His mouth tightened. "So that's it? 20 years gone?" "No," I said quietly. 20 years were gone the moment you chose her. All I did was acknowledge it." He slammed his fist against the counter, the sound sharp. "Do you know what this will do to me? To my career? To your image," I finished for him. "Yes, Daniel. That's what this has always been about. Not me, not us. You." His eyes flicked toward me, and for a moment I thought I saw regret. But it was shallow, a surface wound. Regret for being caught, not for the betrayal itself. I walked past him, carrying the trash to the curb. Outside, the evening air smelled faintly of rain. Neighbors waved politely as they passed, their eyes lingering just a little too long. I didn't care. Let them look. Let them talk. Back inside, Daniel sat at the table, his head in his hands. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, diminished. But I didn't feel pity. I felt relief. For years I had lived in the shadow of his lies, twisting myself into silence to keep the peace. But now, there was no peace to protect, only a life to reclaim. The marriage wasn't ending that day. It had ended long before. That day, I simply chose myself. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this story, so feel free to share them in the comments. And if you'd like to hear more true-to-life stories like this one, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many more waiting for you. Sending you warm regards until we meet again.